and his superiorità. Non pater campesenis, peris teresa Agonis, Christum naturam sanguinum, sed permanet suavi.
All right. Hello, and welcome to Moments with the Master. I'm here with my brother, Lieutenant Colonel, the Right Reverend Josh Defer White, to talk about the readings for the 22nd Sunday after Pentecost. And they are Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 7 through 9, Psalm 126, Hebrews chapter 5, verses 1 through 6, and Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. It was a little bit of disconnect. It seemed like there were two different things going on with the readings. The Jeremiah reading is talking about returning, saving the people, the remnant of Israel, gathering them from farthest parts of the earth, among them the blind and the lame, the woman with her child and who is in travail. Do you say travail or travail?
I say travail.
That does connect with the Mark verse where Jesus is healing Bartimaeus. The Hebrews one is another one in the series of readings about Christ as the high priest. And then there's
the Psalm, which talks about being restored.
I guess that doesn't connect with the other two. I am going to be reading the Psalm today. So Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, then we were like those who dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad indeed. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the watercourses of the Negev. Like those who sowed with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying the seed, will come again with joy, shouldering their sheaves. By the way, I've been to several churches up here, a couple of Catholic churches and Episcopalian church. None of them do the Gloria Patri at the end of the Psalms, and
when I was in Kuwait in the Roman Catholic Mass, they never did that. In fact, we never did that. We never did Gloria Patri ever.
It is one of the things that I've appreciated about, like, that's not even exactly the liturgy. That's more just an addition to the Psalms, but it absolutely seems appropriate that it should go there. I'm sad that they don't do that.
Yeah.
I had difficulty still. I'm not entirely sure where this is going to go, figuring out what I was going to say.
It's half the fun of what we do, what you and I do with these things.
Yeah, I know.
We just kind of go all sorts of weird places.
When I came and sat over here, I saw these pictures behind me. So I was going to talk about them real quick and then connect it to what I just read. First of all, do you remember the hymn? They'll return rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Okay.
Bringing in the sheaves.
Yes.
In the sheaves.
I think it's a Thanksgiving hymn, actually.
They sing it when I'm raking leaves in our yard.
Raking up the leaves.
Yes.
Nice. We have these three pictures, which I did not mean for this to happen, but they appear to go along common theme. I'm actually going to share the screen so I can show you all of them. So sharing screen, and here we go. This, I believe, was painted by my uncle who has polio, by the way. That actually may connect later, possibly by my grandmother. But it is, if I am not incorrect, Sheldon Church, the ruins of Sheldon Church, which is this gorgeous ruin of an Episcopalian church in Yemassee, South Carolina. People go there and have weddings sometimes. There's live oaks all around. has not been. They'll sometimes have services in the building, in the ruins of the building, but it's not a functioning church anymore. It's just the shell of one that was there. This is based on a photo. Oh, you can't see me because I'm sharing the screen. Of the house where we grew up. And what's interesting about it is this photo and this painting that was made from it is actually of the house when it was first built, something like over 100 years ago.
By my grandfather, our great-grandfather, who was a pastor and definitely not a carpenter, because there was not a stick of insulation or a straight line in that entire house.
Yeah, but I would think that for most of us children, that property and that house, like when we think home, that is the image that pops up.
Absolutely.
But what's interesting to me is, even though this is a painting of the house when it first came up, to me, both the photo and this look like the ghost of what we call the compound.
Right. Well, because over the years, first of all, there were some additions to the house that are not here. And then so like the place grew up. I mean, there were when it was built, it was like just this barren hill. And like when we were there, I mean, it was trees and life.
It looks to me like a memory, the forgotten ruin of the house. Mm-hmm. This other one is not one that was. This was painted by a friend of mine that I used to work with. This is by Caspar David Friedrich. It's called the Abbey in the Oakwood, I think. And as you can see, again, it is the ruins of a church, of an abbey, and you can see on the bottom there's like some graveyards that you can barely make out, some graves, and you see the monks walking into the abbey. If you get a chance to travel to England, especially, there are many ruins that look very much like this, because when the reformers came through, they just destroyed the old Catholic abbeys and stuff like that, because they were relics of the pagan Christians and whatnot. Okay. So I heard this fascinating story about why essay about why organs, why we associate them with scary things.
Oh, me too.
You saw that. Okay.
Especially the that particular Bach's toccata and fugue.
Yes. So I heard that before. After I had put all these things up, and one of the ones he talked about was this Caspar David Friedrich painting, and he used the term ruin lust, which was a artistic obsession that happened in the, I'm going to say 1800s, where people were obsessed with painting and even building, like they would build new ruins, something that looked like a ruined abbey. Yeah. It piqued my interest, because that is a thing that I have actually wanted to do. There's, like, I've always wanted to put up a high cross, like a real high cross that looks like one of the ones from ancient Ireland and Scotland. But I've also wanted to just have a ruin, like a big property with a ruin on it that I could wander around in. So I was wondering why I had all of those things that I had gathered. Like this painting, if it is by Uncle Robbie, it was one of the few things that I took from the compound, and I've had it up in my house wherever I've lived ever since. And that's a new favorite painting right there. And this one I bought for this house because I loved it, and I can, put up things like that now. What is my obsession with the ruins? By the way, there's also this one, which may be hard to see. There's light shining on it. Yeah, it's by Vincent van Gogh, and it's of a bunch of inmates walking around in a circle in the exercise yard. That was the only exercise that they got. He painted it while he was in an insane asylum. That's a new addition. So when I saw that, it immediately connected here. I wonder when this psalm was written about the return from either Babylon or Assyria, right? Babylon.
It was
probably.
Babylon because they didn't
Okay.
return from Assyria.
Right. That's right. It was about Judah returning from Babylon.
And what's interesting, and this relates back to what you and I were discussing in mine, like they talk about, you have done great things, like the Lord has done great things for us, but he's returning them from exile. So God sent them into exile, and now they're saying, oh, look at this great thing God has done for us by bringing us back from the bad thing that he allowed to happen to us.
Right. So, and I've got to imagine that all of the things that, like all of their memories, because they'd been there for a while, so there had been stories told, and they returned, and the walls were definitely torn down. That was one of the things the Babylonians did. The palace and the temple were, at the very least, pillaged of all of their goods. But I imagine that,
well, they had to rebuild the temple. That's what Nehemiah did. Yes. It was torn. It was down to the dirt.
It was down to the dirt.
Rebuilt the walls. Ezra rebuilt the temple.
Okay.
But it was like they threw the walls down to basically to the ground, and the temple was gone. There was nothing.
Okay. So I don't know that there was, but then I also think of, even though it was not from the original temple at all, but the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem today, I think it is something that the Jewish people would, like, this obsession is probably something that the Jewish people would recognize.
Right, because the Wailing Wall is just the only remnant. It was just the retaining wall of the base that Herod built. So it's not even, like you said, not even part of the temple. And yet it is as close as they can get.
It's so. My question for myself is, and please ring in here, is it an obsession with what could have been? Is it a hope for restoration? Is it a reminder? Because I don't feel like my life is in a shambles. I feel actually like I remember when I was going to prison, one of the last verses my dad gave me was about how God would restore the years that have been eaten by the locusts.
Yeah, that's also in Jeremiah, I think.
Yeah, it's like, especially in Josiah's life, the big thing for me has been to help him to rebuild, and to be back to where he could be. But the relationship that I have with him, which is 100% the foundational, not foundational, but most important relationship in my life, human relationship in my life, is very much restored, in the sense of being very strong. It's different than it would have been, and there's a lot of regret there. There's this weekend I was driving up to Letchworth. I think you saw those pictures with all the rainbow water and everything. Drove up there, and I found in my CDs there was one labeled depressing. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was, so I put it in and I start listening, and it's like all of these songs that I had collected about me, like when I had realized it was something wrong with me, simultaneously I had put together this album, and it was just it was weird to listen to. It was emotionally, like, I was crying in the car. You probably know, do you know Hurt by Johnny Cash is Rendering? There's that one. There's The Beast in Me, Caged by Frail and Fragile Bars. The one that really crushes me and goes to it's if anything, it's the song at the core of who I am is Hero by David Crosby. And we wonder, yes, we wonder, how do you make sense of this? And the hero kills the maiden with his kiss. Yeah. Although I was thinking of Joe when I was listening to it. Do you think it is unhealthy to focus on the ruins, or like, what is your assessment of that? I guess is what I would like to know.
Well, I'm sure there's psychology to it, like why we're fascinated with those types of things, because we love. I think there is a piece of history to that. Like we like to look at things like that because it reminds us of the past. But I'm less concerned with ruins in general, and just in the spiritual sense. Like I think first, well, two things. One, like one of my favorite passages, and there's a beautiful song called Beauty. He takes beauty
from
ashes, strength from fear, gladness from mourning, peace from despair, something like that. That I can look at the ruins because I know that God will bring beauty from that. So we look at like that one picture that of the Sheldon Church. It's a beautiful place. It was
a different beauty than it would have been if it hadn't been destroyed.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, sometimes we try to hold on to what we have when God's like, if you'll let me tear it down, what will be in its place is even better. And I think we often do that with a lot of things in our lives. Secondly, I'm going to actually throw three things in there to the music, the heart, that song, because Johnny Cash's story. So if you watch Walk the Line, I think it's an incredibly good movie about just the absolute disaster that his life was. And then he changed, and they kind of gloss over this in the movie, but what changed him was a true conversion experience. He really came to Jesus. But here he is, and I think he recorded Hurt. I think it was a week before he died. And his voice is not as strong or as good as it was, in fact, but I think it was the best song I've ever heard him do. And I'm watching the video, I was just weeping because it's got these images of Christianity and the cross, and yet he's talking about his regret and the ash heap of all the things.
The last line is, if I could start again 1,000,000 miles away, I would keep myself, I would find a way.
Yeah.
And then
so did Christ redeem much of that? Yes. Did he have regrets? Did he look at the ruins of his life, that some of which were still there? Absolutely. And recognize that even in restoration, there were still those ruins that he created. God did not do that. He did that. But thirdly, in our lives, when people see a lot of the experiences that I've been through over the years, when I share those experiences with other people, I talk about, when I do suicide prevention classes, I talk about the places I've walked, some of them, and it speaks to people because they see some of the ruins that I have still in my soul. And they're like, oh, I can relate. And I can see that even though there are these ruins, there is also restoration. And maybe that is the great thing about ruins, is we also see restoration.
I was talking to Daddy. Did he call you about this past Sunday and his weepy times as he was thinking about mommy?
No.
To make a long story short, there was even though there was a lot of restoration and there was a beautiful figurative house built around her with shiny flowers and everything, there was a room in the center of her house that was like it was built around a ruin of a chapel called You Are Unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
And she never moved out of that house, really. Occasionally she would exit temporarily, but she always went back in there. And it was, there was some triumph and overcoming in her life, but there was also a significant amount of her never having come out of that. And that the true victory for her didn't happen until she died, and that chapel got destroyed and she got carried out of it. I probably not going to name my chapel. I don't know what it is right now. I don't want to. I'm not sure what's at the core of everyone, but I think everyone has one that I don't know. Maybe having ruins around. Yeah, actually, exactly what you said. It is a reminder of the restoration that can occur as well, as long as you can move out of them. But yeah, it's because I think there's definitely still pain there for you, even when you talk about 4 years ago. There's still a considerable amount there. It's amazing how much.
It is a wound that is still, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It is still a wound. And so what Marilyn and I are choosing to do with that wound is help other people that are wounded in a similar way. And you know what? It reminds me of the stigmata of St. Francis, a wound that never heals. And so he uses it to minister to others.
The heel of ransom too.
Yes. So I've got to go to my next thing. I don't want to cut you off, but
no, actually that was very helpful, and I appreciate your I needed your pastorhood in that. Priesthood.
Thank you.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, give you my heart, my soul, and my strength. Make me a good man.
Amen.